Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. We are coming to you live via Facebook streaming, via YouTube streaming, and also via Skype online. Each one of you is welcome to this Saturday morning live streaming. What is the desire for perfection? Mind always seeks perfection. Why does it seek perfection? Because that is the nature of the mind. It cannot see anything beyond perfection. And perfection is neurosis. Perfection means you have reached to the limit beyond which there cannot be done anything. That's the end. And all perfectionists are neurotic. The desire for perfection is the search for the lost womb, the paradise lost. The child is utterly happy in mother's womb, very happy in mother's womb. Indeed, that memory still persists. It is not just a memory in the brain, instead, it is the very cell and very fiber of the body. Everyone wants to be perfectionists. It is all over you. The memory continues and lingers. Those 9 months have been of such eternal joy, relaxation, and let go. There wasn't anything to be done. Indeed, it is not easy to forget those moments. Even though consciously you have forgotten, but they continue to remain deep within. And because of the birth trauma, you become disconnected continuously. You get disconnected consciously from it, yet the unconscious is still hankers for it. It tries in every way to reach to that lost paradise again. As we are continuing the live streaming via Facebook, specifically where the viewers can send a question. So as I turn my face towards the screen, there are questions relating to many topics. One of them is how one can attain to a state of meditativeness through male-female relation. Osho has spoken on it, but yet is still the more understanding is needed. So one of these days I will speak on that. So whoever is the one has asked this question, clearly explain from Sambhog to Samadhi. I will speak on this topic probably tomorrow in tomorrow's session. Continuing, what is perfection? The whole religion consists of that search And the whole science too consists of that search. Science endeavors to create that womb outside with central heating, central air conditioning, better clothes, better technology. Virtually the entire effort is to create the womb outside where you are comfortable, and the religion tries to create the womb inside. How does religion seek to create that womb inside? Through prayers, meditation techniques, love, and God. But the effort is one how to again retain to that state. Once again, the lost womb is the source of the parable of Adam and Eve, the Garden of Eden. Deep within each one of you have a desire for perfection. The desire for perfection implies that whatsoever is the case with you, it is never up to mark. It is never as it should be. Between what is and what it should be, there is a gap. You are never satisfied with it or things as they are. You can still imagine things getting better. You can still imagine better days, better possibilities, and this you go on doing on a day-to-day basis. One goes on hankering for those better possibilities to exist sometimes. You can drop this search for perfection only if you move back through the birth trauma again. If you live it consciously and you remember consciously those moments in the womb, immediately the desire for perfection will disappear. Indeed, it disappears immediately, and the disappearance of this desire is a great relief, because then you can start living moment to moment. How can you live with the desire for perfection? It is the source of all neurosis. The desire for perfection is the source of all neurosis. The man who wants to become perfect is sure to become neurotic. Because he cannot be here, he is always in future. He is trying. The perfection has to happen in future, which does not exist in reality. He cannot enjoy this moment, this very moment when something is happening. Instead, he can only condemn it. He cannot love this woman because he has an idea of a perfect woman. She cannot enjoy this very moment because she has an idea of a perfect man. He cannot love this man because this man is not perfect. He cannot enjoy this food, this breakfast, this morning. Nothing is ever to fulfill him. And certainly it cannot be. His expectation is there, and this is continuously, and he goes on continuously comparing. And when he compares something, this moment from the last moment, he falls apart. He falls short. The man who lives in the desire for perfection lives a condemned life. And the society helps it too. The parents, the schools, the colleges, the universities, the priests, the politicians, they all help you to remain neurotic. From the very childhood, you have not been accepted as you are. Everyone says that you should be this, you should be that, and this. You should be like this, only then you are acceptable. If you want to live a life of your own, you will be condemned by everyone. Everybody will be against you. Everyone will be against you. Your parents will not tolerate you because they have to mold you, form you, change you, and manipulate you. Certainly they have to design you according to their heart's desire. The father wants his son to become this, become that. He always wants his son to be better than him as far as financial, as far as his status is concerned, all these things. And what is the problem with them? They are also suffering from birth trauma. They have tried their whole life to become perfect. The emphasis should be on being total in the moment. I am speaking to you. I am not trying to be perfect. My emphasis is that I am speaking to you out of my totality. My dictum, the words that they overflow, the words connect you in such a way that you feel something deep within also. And if you listen to these talks afterwards, there will be certain moments that you will disappear and you do not know what had happened to you. You will never know what has happened to you, where have you been. So in those moments you are connected to the gap within, gap between the two thoughts. This is connecting you to your being. They have tried their whole life to become perfect and they have failed. Nobody can ever succeed in being perfect. And perfection means the end has come. After that there is nothing more to be done. Nobody can ever succeed. The desire is such that it is bound to fail. Failure is inevitable because you can go on succeeding, but you have the idea of perfection starts becoming more and more sophisticated. As you succeed, the idea starts receding further ahead into the future. It becomes more and more sophisticated, more expectations surface each moment. The distance between you and the idea of perfection always remains the two. You know what had happened when Krishna was a little baby and all the milkmaids came and complained that how mischievous Krishna was. He eats the butter in their place, thieves it. That is okay, he can eat the butter. But he destroys the earthen butter pots as well. So, listening to all these, the mother Yashoda got angry and she tried to tie up Krishna. She got a rope. Krishna stood silently, very innocently, ready to be tied by the mother. And in doing so, he is doing his Leela, the conscious play. So Yashoda tries to tie him up. Each time when she tries, the string is 2 finger width short. So when it is 2 finger width short, she adds up little more, then it is 2 finger bigger. She does something, again it is either 2 finger width. 2 finger width does not become 2.5 or 1.5 or 1.25 or 1.75. It remains 2 finger width. And the gap between, either it is 2 finger width bigger or 2 finger width shorter. The mystery she could not understand. It is only a master can understand the mystery. This 2 finger width refers to you and I. This is duality. Yashoda is trying to tie Krishna. The two, Yashoda and Krishna. You are seeking God. You and God. The gap always remains of 2 finger width. And that can never be fulfilled unless and until you realize that you and God are same. You are made up of the same stuff, but it is very difficult to say that. Very difficult to understand that I and God are same. How can that be possible? I am a sinner. Because this has been infused into you by certain religions that you are born sinner. I have heard a joke. You see the Christian missionaries, they come to your house as a part of their work of teaching. So he was talking to this man and he said, we are all born out of sin. Jesus was born, all of us are born out of sin. So this person responded, he said, maybe you are born out of sin. When I was born, my father and mother were married. You may be born out of sin, but when I was born, my father and mother were married. It was a joke, but the people did not have the answer. The point is, this has been infused into us that God is separate from me. The moment you realize this, that you and God are one. God means totality. The samam banam. The moment you are total, you attain to that state of godliness. And this is what a mystic is, this is what a sheikh is, a master is. In him, the three, the being, the mind, and the body instrument work in harmony with one another. There is no gap. And with this, he attains to that status. When you are 100,000, the desire has moved ahead. Now even 100,000 desires is not enough. So is the case with everyone. The parents were living in their traumas. They have tried their whole life and they have failed. This has been infused into you. And you are continuing this on a day-to-day basis. And at the end of the journey, you realize that you have failed. Now they want their children to live. They want to live through the children. Every father wants to live through his son. Hence they start turning the child into a neurosis. And they start teaching the child. This is a surrogate way of living. They have failed, now they know the death is coming near, their time is coming to an end. Thus they start losing the hope. Suddenly a new hope arises that they can live through their son, they can live through their daughter. If they were not perfect, at least their children can be perfect. And they say tree is known by the fruits, so it is. So if the children are perfect, then it will be said that the parents were perfect as well. And this process continues. And when the child reaches to the end of the journey, he realizes he failed. He continues to lean towards his children. This is how the whole neurosis continues from one generation to the next generation, and this never comes to an end. The parents are continuously trying to improve upon the child in every possible way. And all that they succeed in doing is that they make the child feel condemned as he is. He is not accepted as he is. They make it impossible for the child to love and respect himself as he is. And once that love and respect for oneself is lost, one is completely lost in the wilderness. The world suffers so much from madness and all kind of mental neurosis and illness and physical diseases. And 99% of the causes of all these body-mind problems come from the approach of perfection. You do not allow your children to be real. You make them feel unreal by forcing them to feel phony, rejected, and worthless. And once this idea is created in their minds that they are worthless as they are, naturally a great desire arises in them. Desire for perfection arises. And with that comes in all kinds of neurosis. With this comes in all kinds of neurosis. If you want to attain to something, you have to drop all this nonsense. Somewhere or the other, you have to make a breakthrough. A particular style, particular way of life is continuing. Do I have to continue to live like this and leave this neurosis for my children to continue? No. A break has to be there. I am breaking this sequence. You have to drop all nonsense. Accept the children as they are. Try to improve upon themselves rather than imposing something. If the child wants this, work out with him how that could be feasible and how that could be possible. In dropping that, you become for the first time real. And when you become the real, then you will accept everything as it is. Reality is never perfect, remember. There is always room for improvement. A mystic has been singing, बना बना के ये दुनिया मिटाई जाती है, जरूर कोई कमी है कि पाई जाती है. Again and again this world is created and then destroys, comes to an end. It is born, it dies, is born again, and this process continues. Certainly there is some shortcoming. You are trying to continue it. Reality is never perfect. Remember, reality is always growing, continuously growing. Then how can there be perfect something that is growing? Perfection means the end. The tree has stopped growing. As long as it is continuing to grow, there will not be perfection. Growth is not possible if there is perfection. Only imperfection can have the joy of growing. And that is most important, because you are continuously growing. And when you are growing tiny bit by bit, see how the plant grows. It does not bother about the plant standing next to it. That plant, the two plants have their own ground, their own nourishment to receive from the ground. They have their own source of extracting the nourishment from the earth, and through the roots and through the leaves, through the stem, from the rain, from the sun, from the wind, and then continues to grow on its own, never perfect. There never comes a moment that tree has attained to full bloom. A certain time comes in when it has reached a certain state, the bloom happens. Only imperfection can have the joy of growing. Do you want to remain a flower, growing and opening? Or do you want to become just a dead stone, perfect, not opening, growing, or changing? Remain imperfect and respect your imperfection and enjoy it, and you will be able to enjoy, celebrate, and you will be healthy and whole. Wholeness is more important than perfection. Then you will not need to go to psychiatrist or psychoanalyst. Also, there will be no need for any shock therapy. In fact, if your mental stress disappears, your body will feel immediately relieved. If your mental stress disappears, your body will feel immediately relieved. Many diseases will automatically disappear from the earth if the foolish idea of becoming perfect disappears. But this has been taught from the very beginning, from the church, the temple, the mosque, and the universities. Everywhere, everyone seems to be part of this conspiracy. Everyone seems to be part of this conspiracy. Everyone seems to be utterly determined to make every person perfect. And not even a single perfect being has ever existed, because perfection cannot exist. It's not the way of existence. Totality is the way of existence. The existence wants you to be total in whatsoever you are doing. This very moment, all your energies are poured into it. I am speaking to you. All my energies, the voice modulation, the gestures, the choice of the words, their gaps, all has to be blended together to create a total effect. And that is what becomes the aura. And not even a single perfect human being has ever existed, because perfection is not the way of existence, and it does not exist. Imperfection is the way things are. Imperfection is beautiful because it has the potential to grow and flow. Because it has potential to grow and flow. Perfection is simply the end, the death, nothing else. Life is imperfect as it is. and life enjoys imperfection. I teach you how to be total in the moment, not perfection. And these are the two different goals. Perfection is neurotic goal, totality is sane. You can attain to totality. Just imagine, has anyone in the past ever attained to perfection? We all talk about perfection, but we never talk about totality. Change the gestalt, start talking about totality. Teach the children to be total in whatsoever they are doing. Perfection is in the future, totality is here now. This very moment, you are cooking something, you can pour your totality into it. Then it will be something of a tremendously different value. The food will have its value. It will nourish and nurture you. It will become like a food for Buddhas. It will have a different quality altogether to nourish and nurture your body, your mind, and everything else. You can be total this very moment. Totality is your choice. It is choiceless. You can be total in anything that you do. It doesn't matter. In prayer, you are driving, you can be totally into driving. You are walking. Watch a Buddha walking. It's a total walk. His whole body is walking. Not that is the entire, the being, the body, the mind, everything is into that act of walking. He is walking. Buddha says, when I sleep, I sleep. He becomes sleeping. When he is walking, he becomes walking. He is an embodiment of walking. He is an embodiment of talking. And then there is a joy watching. Watching Buddha walk is a tremendous joy because it is not the mind walking. You drive, your mind is separate from mechanically the steering moves towards the house. Does it ever happen consciously that your steering moves towards the destination where you have to go? Most of the time it is the habitual. Most of the time habitual. It is automatically it happens. You can be total in anything that you do. It does not matter if you are cleaning the floor or cooking the food or writing poetry or driving or you are listening to me. I am speaking. When I am finished, I have the morning breakfast to prepare. So whatsoever it is, totally into it. Before this session began, I did my exercises, which is a routine work. After that, cleaning the floor, watering the plants. Oh, that was a joy. It is totality is flowing through these. It will not matter if you are cleaning the floor, cooking the food, watering the plants, or anything else. You can be total this very moment, and totality needs no preparation. Totality means your mind is not somewhere else, it is in that. Normally, our mind is not in what we are doing. We go to the restaurant, the food is in front of you. The food can satiate you, but you are thinking of something else. The platter is there full of delicious food. The aroma is not reaching your nostrils. The Eyes are not getting satiated with the look of the food, the aroma as it comes in. Do you feel the aroma when the food comes to the dining table? But that time you are thinking of something else. You are in conversation with someone else. Your mind is not into it. Thinking of something else. Hands are writing something else. The nostrils are bringing the information, the aroma. The eyes are bringing the image. But these just go deaf ears. You pay no attention to it. Oh, wow. Looking so nice. It smells nice too. When you do things like these, what kind of madness is this? This is not accepted as a manners in the society. So do you want to live like a social animal or natural? With your totality, you will enter godliness, you will enter God and nirvana, the salvation. When you are total, the self disappears. The you and I do not remain. The two finger wicks become one. When you are total, the self disappears. Indeed, it is the beauty of totality that makes you one. Just try to understand. Totality is subtle. Totality is subtle and of immense significance. When you are total, the self disappears. Have you ever seen any total? Have you ever seen a total moment? Have you ever experienced the moment when you are total? Have you ever experienced, then you know the self immediately disappears in that very moment. In that very moment, self disappears. And this is what Hindus call it self-realized. Self-realized, the moment self is realized, it disappears. If you are total in love with a woman or with a man, the self disappears. The ego is no more. When you are making love, the self disappears. If you are totally into it, everything disappears. When you are making love, the self disappears. If you are totally into it. If you have gone for a morning walk, you are totally in it. Nothing else matters in those beautiful moments when you are on a walk. Just the morning and you are there. And you are dissolving into the morning, and morning sun dissolves into you. A sun is risen within you. As the sun is rising on the horizon, on the inner horizon also sun rises. You and the morning, the birds, the trees and the sun, and you are completely drowned in that ambience. Completely drowned in that moment, the self disappears. And that is the moment of bliss when self disappears. A new journey begins. First, the disappearance of self happens. Call it self-realized. Then a new journey of bliss begins. Bliss is when you are totally available to the precise moment, totally. Bliss happens only when you are available to the precise moment, totally. You are on the walk, the sun is on the horizon, it is lurking from behind the clouds, the birds are chirping, the echo, the sound enters your ears. The disappearance of self is benediction. You will know that Buddha means when he says no self. Buddha used the language of negation. Hinduism uses the language of assertion, the self. Self is benediction, Buddha said. No self is benediction, he means utter bliss. He never uses the word utter bliss because he knows you can make a goal out of it. You can start striving to attain to the state of utter bliss. You can make a goal of perfection, and then you have missed the whole point of it. If you are total into the moment, bliss happens as a byproduct. If you are total in a particular moment, bliss happens as a byproduct. Because then self disappears. Dancing, singing, listening to music, or just being with me, and those words sometimes listening to me, and these words, sometimes it happens that you enter, the self disappears. You enter into the gap between the two words, between the two moments. And that is the moment of bliss. That is the moment I want to create. I go on creating for you. When you are total, bliss happens as a byproduct. Self disappears. Dancing, singing, listening to the music, or just being with me. And these words, all of a sudden, bloop, it happens. I can see this happening to many. I know when I look at your face, whatever there is, self or not, your face immediately have a different quality and a glow. Even if it happens for a few moments, then I look at you and the self is not there, just an emptiness. The blank, the face is blank. You are just an opening, a window, through which the energy enters you. In those moments, God is there. You are not. All clouds have disappeared. The sky is clear. The sky is clear, transparent. The sun is shining in its total glory. Whenever your self disappears, even for a moment, suddenly the luminousness is there on your face. The moment self disappears, even for a moment, suddenly the luminousness is there on your face and quality of magic that arises around you. And that quality of the magic that arises around you, we have been taught to live in non-total way through the ideas of perfection. I teach you totality. In totality, self disappears. And just contrary is the case with perfection. With the idea of perfection, self goes on strengthening, and it is ego that claims to be perfect. I cannot be total because totality, in totality, I is never found. Hence it appeals to ego to become perfect, to be most perfect man or a woman in the world. Ego feels satiated and very good about it. Ego is involved with the idea of perfection. With experience of totality, ego simply becomes non-existential and vanishes. If you learn how to be here now, slowly and slowly you will see life is beautiful as it is. Life is beautiful in its suchness. in its as-it-isness. It needs no improvement. This can be helped through the birth trauma. If you go through the birth trauma consciously, if you live it consciously again, then the whole significance of birth changes. Then everything changes. Right now, the womb experience remains in your unconsciousness. It is important that you are striving for it unknowingly. That is why people go on thinking that in the past everything was good. This is nothing but projection because of the womb experience. In all the societies of the world, in all the religions of the world, the idea persists that golden age was there somewhere in the past. In India, they say the golden age was prehistoric. Then things started falling down. We were in a state of bliss, and then we start falling, and finally we have lost that golden age. This is nothing but the same story woven philosophically. The original fall, the fall of Adam and Eve from the Garden of Eden, is nothing but a fall from the womb. And the memory that sometimes before, far away, in the distant past, everything was golden and beautiful then. This is nothing but a memory projected on history. Individual memory projected on history. Projected on collective history. And we have to attain to it again. So we become interested in future. And this continues. The past is important, the future is important, only the present is not important, it is forgotten. Such your understanding, and you have been conditioned into it. Man has lost the past. Now only in future he is trying to achieve it someday. So there are two types of people, both are not different from one another. Religious people say the golden age was in the past, and the non-religious say golden age is coming, is to be in future, the utopia is coming. Hindus say the golden age, Satyug, the age of truth, was in the past, and communists say that the golden age, Samyug, the age of equality, is going to happen, going to come in future. They are not different from one another. They look different, but they are basically same. Because one talks about the past, the other talks about the future. We are the same mechanism, and they would want to avoid the present moment. The present moment is being avoided. Real spirituality begins with the present and ends with the present. The real spirituality begins with this moment and ends with this moment. It has no past, it has no future. This moment is all. This moment is enough. I am with you, you are with me, this moment is total. Go into your childhood and you have been taught and conditioned layers upon layers. You will have to peel the onion of your mind to reach to the emptiness within. And then finally you will come to the birth trauma. One day you were born. You can live it again. That is the whole process of rebirthing. You can live it again, and once you have lived it again, it disappears. That is what initiation comes to be. And what happens then, indeed, your total perspective changes. In initiation, your perspective is supposed to change. If you can live it again consciously, only if you move back, become a child, a small child, a baby just coming out of the womb, you will go through great suffering and agony. You will suffer the same birth trauma. You will feel suffocated. Your breathing will become hectic. Sometimes the breathing may even stop completely. Your body will become paralyzed, almost like you will feel you are dying, because that is what you have felt when you were coming out of the womb. When you enter this consciously, you will feel you are passing through a very narrow tunnel, suffocating, the dark. This is what happens in deep meditation. You feel that you are passing through a narrow channel, a dark. A great fear will arise in your being. You will be shaken and rocked by fear. You will need somebody to help you, to hold your hands, to give you assurance, to guide you. Hence there is need for the master, a guide who have gone through, a guide who has walked through that narrow tunnel. He has gone through such situations. You will need someone to protect you, to console, to support you by saying and encouraging you to go through this without fear and let it pass once for all. Once for all, without escape from it. Once you have passed through it, once you have seen consciously what happens in birth, unconsciously, it is wiped out. This is wiped out then. This is the process of the mind. Anything lived consciously is wiped out of the mind. It does not hang around you in the unconscious moments. And then for the first time you will see the world is beautiful. The willow is green and the rose is red. And then for the first time you will see the womb is good and certainly not the goal. The womb was convenient, but it was only a preparation. It was not the real life. It was dependence. It knew nothing of freedom. Then how can it be beautiful? Yes, it was convenient. Convenient and comfortable. You are not really alive, and then you start seeing that life and has beauties which no womb can ever give it to you. All wombs are confined. That is why after 9 months a child comes out of it, because of the confinement. All wombs are prisons, yet comfortable and warm, but a prison is prison. Even if it is comfortable, even if it is warm, even if it is, but it does not make any difference. You are coming out of the womb into freedom. The whole sky opens to you, the sun, the moon, the trees, the stars were not available to you in the womb. And the songs of the bird and the music, all the poetry, all the love also were not available to you in the womb. Once you have seen that it is not worth, it was needed in those moments because of certain reasons. It was needed in those moments because you were growing and you were very tender and delicate. You needed protection. Once the child is 9 months, he hankers to come out of the womb, come out of the prison. He wants to come out. He wants to be free of the womb. He is ready to go into the world and plunder, to see the joys and miseries of the world. He is ready to go deep into experience and into the existence. Once you have lived the birth trauma consciously and you have erased the pain of memory, certainly you will erase the pain of memory. you will be surprised that something like a mist from your eyes have disappeared. And then you will open your eyes, the trees will be greener than they ever had appeared you to be. And everything will be totally different. You will see the world in its true colors. It is more colorful. It is constant jubilation. There is no end to the joy. It is the song ad infinitum. Once you start seeing this, life begins. This is what Jesus says when he calls, unless you are born again, you will not enter into kingdom of my Father. He's talking about rebirthing. He's talking about innocence. No one can save you unless you save yourself. No Christ, no Buddha can ever save you. But you can save yourself, and it is your responsibility to save yourself. And the way to save is to be reborn again. That is what Hindus call it. It is not a ceremony. It is actually happening. And the way to save it, to be reborn again, remember, if you suffer from the desire of perfection, then almost everybody does, then make it a point. You have to go back into your birth process and you have to erase the whole recording from your consciousness. And then look again with empty eyes. You will be surprised. And whenever you come across their birth, and whosoever comes across their birth experiences, strange, unbelievable things happen. And once you pass through those memories, you start losing control over you. Going through the birth is the first step. If you can do that, then the second step is going through the death that precedes your birth. Life begins with birth, ends with death, then again birth comes and the process continues. The dance of life continues. If you can do it, then the second step is going through death that preceded your death 9 months before. If you can go through your birth, you can easily go through death. And once you have gone through your death, your past life becomes available to you. This is why this sutra looks so depressing to you. Sutras of Zen Master Iku, because they are based on a totally different understanding of life. These people have known their past lives and they see the stupidity of it, which you cannot see. Think you are doing a great thing, but you are not aware. If you have been in love for many lives in the past, and again, you have always failed. And if you come to know about it, then love affair that you were in today will simply become invalid just through that experience. Now you know these are the ways you have always been deceiving yourself. And it is a repetition, a wheel that goes on moving. These sutras are not philosophical sutras. They do not propound any doctrine. They are based on totality. They are based on totally different experience of life, on a different vision. So sometimes you will feel disturbed. Live for totality, not perfection. Only this much for this morning. Until tomorrow, take care and do have a pleasant day.